Hi, my name is Odalis Covarrubias, and today I will be talking about the death penalty or capital punishment. The death penalty, also referred to as capital punishment, is the most severe punishment a criminal can receive. It varies on the state, federal, and military level. It started in the year 1608 with the first execution of Captain George Kendall. It is also legal in only 30 out of the 50 states. Why it matters. It is a very controversial topic with a gray area because people usually find themselves being in the middle, not supporting it 100% or being against it 100%. A great deal is because even though they are criminals and they do break the laws, they are still people. And it actually does not lower the overall murder rate. So it doesn't really make sense. And it is a double standard because punishing murderers by executing them is very biased. There are some pros to the death penalty. One is that it has a deterrence effect. That basically means that it will scare criminals from committing further acts of violence because they will be afraid of the outcome or the punishment. It is morally correct and it is proportional to the seriousness of the crime. What those two mean is that basically, if you commit a crime as such as murder and you take away a life, you should pay that debt with your life. It's, for example, if a thief steals, then their punishment should be reinstitution to the victim. And it also supports public opinion. There has been studies that suggest that over half of the US population are in favor for the death penalty. Just like there are many pros, there are many cons as well to the death penalty. One is that error is likely to occur. A study found that an average of 42 exonerations of death row inmates occurred each year between 1989 and 2003. These exonerations usually occur due to technological advancements, specifically with DNA evidence. It does not lower or change the overall murder rate. And even though more than half of the US population are in favor for the death penalty, support has decreased over time. It's biased because you can't expect criminals to not commit crime if exactly the crime they're going to commit is the way they're punished. It actually causes more crime. There is something called the brutalization effect that says executions increase murder rates because they raise the general violence level in society, and people will be more likely to commit crimes every time. It is cruel and inhumane, specifically with the lethal injection and the electrocution chair. It is cruel and unusual punishment, which is protected by the Eighth Amendment. The US is also one of the few places that still allows it. Since 1990, more than 45 countries have abolished the death penalty for all crimes. And it is also very expensive. A lot of times, death row inmates are kept on death row for many years, and all the fees add up to millions of dollars. And it is morally wrong because it is brutal and it is demeaning to people. The following is a chart of the number of executions since 1976. As you can see, it wasn't so popular and it started becoming much more popular between the years of 1996 and around 2004, 2006, but it has decreased over the years. This chart represents the executions by regions within the US. The most popular is the South, followed by the Texas and Oklahoma region, and the least is in the West, followed by the East. The following pie charts are the race statistics of death row inmates. The one on the left focuses on the race of defendants executed. The majority is whites, followed by blacks, then Hispanics, then other. I would like to focus on the section for blacks and say about 40% of inmates on death row are African American. a number that is disproportionate to the minority representation in the overall population. Focusing on the pie chart to the right, that represents the race of victim of the defendant who received the death penalty. As you can see, whites takes up more than half of the chart, and that is because criminals who kill someone who is white, they are more likely to receive the death penalty rather than if they killed a minority. There are some alternatives to the death penalty. The best alternative, in my opinion, and my preferred solution, is life in prison without the possibility of parole. The next two state that rehabilitation programs for criminals where they can actually get help would go great combined with life in prison without parole, and also reinstitution to the victims and the victims' families. Of course, with talking of alternatives, there is also criticism of those alternatives. The first and the biggest one is if a killer does not have regard for human life, why should the justice system have regard for theirs? That is mostly because of the mentality an eye for an eye, so a life for a life. There's a theory called just desserts theory that states that the punishment should fit the crime. So if a killer killed and if they get the death penalty, it's what they deserve. And one of the biggest ones sometimes is that taxes that people pay should not go to the upkeep of lawbreakers. That this one makes people particularly angry when they know that their money and taxes are going to keeping them fed and housed. My personal response to the criticism is that forgiveness is very important within people. And while the anger and frustration of losing a loved one will never go away, being vengeful and having all that hate within you will never allow you to truly move on. And I personally believe that spending life in prison is a better punishment, especially because of the conditions within a prison. And even though they're being fed and clothed and they have a roof over their head, it isn't a pleasant experience. And it doesn't allow criminals to take the easy way out. It is also cheaper to keep an inmate in prison for life than giving them the death penalty, and they don't deserve millions being spent on them. And lastly, is that change cannot occur because the state kills killers for killing, and that doesn't make sense. And we have to be the change that we want to see. In conclusion, even though capital punishment or the death penalty might have worked many years ago and it was justified, we are in a different era. It's outdated and it just doesn't make sense anymore. The criminal justice system should not have double standards. They should live up to what they expect of people in the community. And lastly, it is morally wrong. Even though criminals who are on death row do deserve some kind of punishment for not having regard for human life, they don't deserve cruel and unusual punishment.